call the December 17th Finance and Administration Committee meeting to order and welcome everybody here. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
First item, public session. You receive anything? Anybody outside in the line waiting to come in?
That's what I've seen.
Okay.
They're all quiet.
Update on current projects.
In your packet, and the project for this year and our projects most likely has spanned or will span several cycles. And included with your packet, nothing really to touch on other than just an update on the Sewer South Phase 2. The engineer, they have sent in their information to the Department of Environmental Services with a request for the permit to operate. So we don't know when that will be issued, if it will be issued, or if they're gonna require more information, but it's now in the state's hands.
Any questions? Alright. So we'll move on to action items, our October year-to-date financial reports.
Move to approve. Second.
Alright, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Alright, and our November and year-to-date financial reports.
This is what I'll let Lynn provide an update on that.
We had planned to give you the November report today. However, I have a discrepancy in public again. It's $84.60. It happened sometime in November. I have gone through at least 7 reports. I've gone through all the transactions. I've gone through all my deposits. I cannot find this. The only thing that I've done differently for November was we got our audit done and we got our adjustments for the audit that I had put into the system. You can't close out the prior fiscal year until you get those audit adjustments in there. So I did the audit adjustments and then I did the closeout, and I don't want to throw public under a bus because I don't know it's public, but I don't know if that's got something to do with it or not. I mean, I've looked through everything I possibly can. I've given it to the outside accountant that does our bank reconciliations, and I also gave it to Jason White, what I found. So I'm hoping either one of the two of them can figure out for me what's going on. I also contacted Public, which they're funded contact for support anymore. And I contacted them to see if they can look at it and try to figure it out with me too. I haven't heard back from them. So I'm presently I'm still looking at it myself even. I looked at it again this morning. I'm still diving for it. Hopefully I will get that, find it. I did talk to Jason about making a general journal entry just to kind of write it off because it's $84.60, which he gave me the blessing on, but then I realized it's not really something that you can put in a general journal entry, because what it is, it's like the amount's already there, it's just the record isn't showing up in public. It's off to the general ledger, not the bank account. I balanced the bank account. So it's like a record isn't showing up in the reconciliation, and I don't know why. So, like I said, I'm just trying to figure it out. So hopefully I will have the report for you in the board meeting next month.
Give her a check for 84 and stuff.
Well, that's all.
What was that?
If I give you a check for 84
I'll do the other 50. 50 cents, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
40 cents or whatever.
Okay.
I think Celia can feel my pain because they've dealt with Public over there. So
I'm trying to get rid of it too.
Yeah.
I'm right there with you.
So
And if y'all find something good, we'd like to know too. So
Well, where we're going isn't making me all warm and fuzzy so far, so.
you're staying with them, right? You're just going to the Springbrook version?
Yeah, hence I'm not real warm and fuzzy right now.
Yeah.
They gotta step it up. Hopefully that camera's not on right now.
Oh, it is. If anybody wants a reference, we can give it to you.
Alright, before I put my foot in my mouth anymore, let's move on to action items. So the committee schedule,
Yeah, the board and committee schedule is in your packet. This is something that we normally would have done at the December meeting, but it would have been the only item on the agenda. There was no need to have a special call meeting in December, I don't think, just to have this. So presented for the committee today. If there's anything that needs to be changed, it'll go before the board on January 6th. But this is put together based on the bylaws that we do have.
So we're not gonna meet in January?
We'll meet in January, but that
Oh, the
Yellow is-
annual meeting, I see it.
the combined.
Yeah, I see it. I was looking for the blue.
anybody see any concerns?
I'm sure we'll have conflicts as the year goes on, but I don't see any right now.
Is there a motion to recommend to board?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any other discussion? Alright, all those in favor?
Aye. Has the operations committee looked at it as well yet, or do they meet? Do they meet this week?
They meet tomorrow, but this is an item that typically,
That'd
it
be
just
okay.
goes straight to the board and
Okay.
doesn't even really go through committee. So
Alright,
again, it's based on the bylaws that we do have.
okay, the second item, to approve an extension through March 31st for the acceptance of hall portable toilet waste.
All right, this is a request of a 90-day exemption that we had put in place back in, I believe it was October 7th, if I remember the date correctly. So we'll get through this calendar year, but be able to extend it further for another, more than 90 days is basically what it's gonna be, but through the end of March. Maybe by that time, we'll be able to have that permanently included with the sewer use regulation, which is still in the review process with the Department of Environmental Services. I reached out to them yesterday to find out where they are with that review, and I've yet to hear back. Thus, we'll just continue. And I don't know that we've even had anybody come from out of the county with any waste, but we don't know what's out there. We just know that they're still having a lot of issues
Just wanna have
with
an
what's
option
going
open in
on.
case.
That's correct.
Move to approve.
Alright, is there a second?
Second?
Alright, any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Director's report and discussion, anything?
I do. I have just a few things that I thought of after I put the agenda out. One is the meals for the annual members meeting. I know Lynn had reached out to everybody, all the commissioners, and it came back that, the recommendation was not to have the meal. There were several of them that said they could go either way. They didn't matter. I believe there was a couple that said yes to it, but most everybody said either no or it didn't matter to them.
It just so happened that we saved $84.10. It just worked.
You're off the hook now.
So that meeting will be at the Westminster Depot. Thank you, Mr. Bronson, for that. We thought for a while that it was back in Walhalla, but when we got to looking back at the schedule, it was in Walhalla 2 years ago. So continue sticking with the rotation that we have. So if you can, just mention to your councils that they will not be fed. I don't know how that's going to affect turnout, but
Well, your subject matter and food don't really go.
well, that's true. That's right. I try to avoid the photos. I do try to avoid putting too much in the way of pictures up there. Any questions about that? Okay. Let's see here. Something I thought of just this morning. I was riding to work and it kind of hit me that we put that sunset on the exemption for the regulation to accept that hauled waste from out of the county, but we never did that when we put together the program to suspend the enforcement of the sewer use regulation regarding the maintenance of fog traps. So we still have that out there. We still have it as a recommendation to them that they maintain it in accordance with what our regulation requires, but we're not enforcing that. So, and that was based on the January meeting, or I'm sorry, the July meeting that we had. So we've addressed that in the proposed sewer use regulation change that is down with the state right now in review. But again, that we don't know when we're gonna get that back from them. Then we have to go through the public notice process and all of that. So with that, is there anything that you recommend that we do? Should I add that as an agenda item to include at the board meeting to extend that? Because we did not, we left it as indefinite.
Well, if it's indefinite, well, it's not extended.
Well, we left it that way,
you
but,
Are you saying you want to set a date
Well-
of this is when it will expire?
well, I think that we need to do that, or we just set it yes. Because right now we've given the green light to everybody not following one portion of the regulation. So do we let that, continue? Do we begin enforcing it? What do we need to do? Is what I think we need
So
to do.
you've incorporated it into your new sewer use that state's reviewing.
So I copied the language that we put in here. Right now, the way that the regulation states is that they have to be maintained on a weekly basis, and that we may approve a modified schedule, but in no case will the cleaning intervals exceed 2 weeks. That's the way it states that it currently is. We're not enforcing that right now. Recommending it, but not enforcing. The proposed change, in summary, states that they will be maintained on the frequency for the proper function of the trap of the unit. The cleaning frequency will be established by us on a case-by-case basis using the 25% rule, which is defined within the regulation. Or if there is evidence of solids or other prohibited matter in the effluent passing through the device. However, cleaning shall not exceed 21 calendar days, no matter what. So that'll be what the new regulation states.
So I'm asking this, even though it's gonna sound like a statement, so you don't want to wait for the state to you don't wanna wait for us to adopt the new regulation before you address that?
I just want to make sure that we're still good, everybody's still good, that we're not enforcing that one regulation that we have out there. So,
But you will, once the new regulation, the language you have would reenact that enforcement.
that's
So once you get sign off from the state, whatever that would be, and then you bring it back to us.
correct, but in a way, right now, what we're doing is not enforcing a state-approved one-line portion of our regulation. Because that has been approved by the state, as this is what you're to enforce.
Wow. I guess I just wondering out loud,
Mhm.
that, what would be the harm in waiting for the adoption of the new regulation?
There isn't one. There's no harm in it, but I wanted to put it out there that, because we did sunset the hauled waste that, was discussed, that we need to put a sunset on that. Well, we didn't do it with the other, provision that we made, which was also an exemption or suspension of enforcement part of the regulation. So that's why I brought it up when I got to thinking on the way into work, that we had that one item on the agenda to extend it, yet we never even gave a sunset for the other one. So do we want to do that, or do we want to just keep it as is?
After you get word back from the state, unless they have some major modifications, would it then come to us?
It will.
So you don't have any more review you need to do?
Public comment.
That's correct. It'll come back to us, the board, it'll go to the board to approve, to put out for public comment. 30 days, they come back, provide a comment to the board. If they have any concerns, then the board can modify it, it goes back through that process again, or it gets approved as approved by the state.
Yes, I'm comfortable waiting on that process to matriculate through.
And I'm fine with that as well, but I figured I would put that out there since it was an item the board brought up with the last one. We were gonna have the 90-day period. The board committee wanna have a set date on that one as well. I'm fine with it. Dalton, I think, is fine with it.
Well, and you know, something you might do is when you bring that new policy forward, that if we need to explicitly state that the temporary moratorium on the enforcement ends. I mean, it would with the adoption of the new regulation, but you can always say it, and then that makes it final.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I mean, I certainly defer to you guys because I know you had some concerns raised by some of your businesses, so.
Yeah, especially, it would be one thing if we were going to what we felt like was a more stringent and we were suspending. But since we're talking about going to a case by case, in which it may be more stringent, it may be less stringent, it depends. I think we're just gonna open up the exact same situation we had in July. If we put out there that we're gonna start it again, if it hasn't gone through the process, since we've started the process on it. The other, I see it being differently because that is in response to a emergency situation that happened to us versus a continual rule that we are enforcing on ourselves.
Right. Yeah, and I bring it up just because, again, our regulation has to be approved by the state.
Right.
So what we've done is we've suspended part of a regulation that the state, I'm assuming, expects us to enforce. So that's what, even the whole matter, you know, every bit of it would be.
Did you ever tell them that we did that? Or
They were at the meeting, D. Hector, yeah.
Yeah.
They were.
Did they
at
ever
that.
say anything about that?
No, they never brought it up. I think they're more interested in the whole inflow and infiltration matter that we've got going on.
I guess I was also thinking of the materiality of it. Like, to Scott's point, the number of businesses that you're actually suspending it for is really a small handful. Majority of them are already compliant with what would have been, what was being enforced. So,
And I'm assuming with the recommendation and Dalton having this relationship split though, that some are already making those steps to do what needs to be done. There's just more time to make the changes that are needed.
Right.
So it's not necessarily that the regulations are not, the people aren't coming into compliance with it. It's just an extended period of time to work with them versus just no, we're not even grading papers or putting it in record book type of thing.
and Chris, could I ask this, that, when we get it back from the state and it goes out to public comment, that we send some kind of specific communication to the affected businesses to let them know there's a new policy being considered. Cause I felt in some ways, some of the issue last time was almost as much communication, or it seemed like there were a few, maybe is a better way to say, there was a communication issue more than an actual issue in the restaurants. So if we let them know with an email or a letter that says, we're considering this, here, please read the new policy so you can understand how it affects you.
The public comment period will be this period.
Yeah, and then if nobody comes in and speaks out about whatever that new component says, then you've given them kind of more than due notice. You've given them very specific notice to Yeah, and we'll, I'll try and make sure we do that to our local folks in town. Although I think we only ended up maybe 2 that were affected by it. The rest of them were fine. But you were the one that, you had the most.
We had a few.
Yeah.
Some of them were the longer standing, and then your ones got taken care of. Alright, anything else? Did you get what you needed for that?
I did,
Okay.
yes, I'm good with that. I just wanted, it was more of a, bring it to the attention to find out if anybody did have any issues with the way it was done with no expiration to it. So, yeah, I'm fine with that.
Anything else?
Lastly, and this has to do with the regional feasibility implementation and also the corrective action plan for the cities. And Allison McCullough had sent out some information after we had done the review of it. And I think the bulk of the questions that she found was stuff I think that was to be resubmitted sometime in the middle of January, I think. But the one thing I think, and this has to do with Bonnie Ammon's RA and the feasibility portion of it, was that the CIP had to be developed by December 6th, which I think we got from most everybody, if I remember correctly, but I think there were some things on there that felt that needed to be included on there as far as routine type work for finding I&I, and that was sent out by email to the cities to add that to it. So, and that all has to do with eventually putting together that rate and cost of service study that's to be done by us as well as the satellite sewer systems. So, I think that each of the cities, if I remember correctly, had to put in there the part of the, or the component about finding, how they're gonna go about finding that and funding the portion of finding the I&I, and not necessarily just what needed to be included. Once we get that back, I have to send that down to Columbia, to RIA, for them to include in whatever packet or portfolio they're putting together for this whole thing. So what we were asked to do, which I assume is something similar to what they're looking at doing, was this, and I'll meet,
How do you get a piece of paper that big?
we have a plotter, so I cut it down to make it narrower. It was about,
It's
you know,
bigger than
longer,
11 by
but-
17, I mean, that's.
But this, what this is it took our 20-year master plan and put every single bit of information off the master plan on there, plus accounted for work and rehab for what we haven't found yet. So we just had to make some assumptions in there too, and you know, that portion of it spans, you know, for the most part, is equally spent across the entire 20 years as we find and realize we have to fix that. We came about identified, because you know, this was part of what we're having to do with the rate study portion of it. Daryl wanted us to include a priority schedule so that if we had to make decisions and, you know, rates, when he puts this together and presents it, if rates are not what people want to have, what the board wants to implement, then we need to begin cutting those back, because I don't know what they're gonna be in. That we have some priority 1 items that we know we need to do, and we may have some priority 3 items that were associated only with growth that we may not want to implement at that time, so we're able to trim that off of what he's working on, so it'd be kind of a worst case scenario and then back into what everyone feels it needs to be. So that priority goes from 1, 2, and 3, and then whether it's for operation and maintenance, growth and operation and maintenance, you know, replacing the pump station that needs to be replaced and upsizing it due to growth, or just straight up cost associated with growth and only growth line expansion or something along those lines. And then we included in there for our own information, whether it was associated with the consent order or not, and then whether it's gonna add a significant operation and maintenance annual cost, such as building pump station, then you have pay a power bill on it every month. And you're having to go check it once a week or more frequently, so you're adding time, resources, and staff to do that. So that's what we were asked to do. So I don't know if any of you guys been discussing with whoever the consultant is, and happy to study, but that's what they had asked us to be able to do. And I don't know that Bonnie wants something in that much detail, but I know that they wanna we're gonna do this work in this period, and it's gonna cost this much, this is how we're gonna fund it, and that's what's to be submitted. Oh, and then how you're gonna go about finding it, so making sure that if you need flow meters, that's accounted for in there as well.
When did you send the email out on the finding component? I don't remember, and you might have sent it to my utility guys and I just didn't see it.
It may have gone to Reagan. I'll have to ask Allison who she sent to, but it might have gone to Reagan because he's been the point person. He's the one that submitted the CAP to us, so I think that's probably who it went to. And I think I may have even had a phone call with Reagan, but it was more of a question that when the committee, the ad hoc committee asked about the inside, outside customers that you sent in to Angie, it was about to let him know that was something that committee was asking about, which we have received. We've received that from everybody now. So, then that's all I have. But after the meeting, if you want to look at this or ask any questions, and that's when you become full-time city administrators and not part-time commissioners here, I'll answer those questions or share with you the spreadsheet or whatever you want. That's it. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Any committee member discussion? Anything we want to bring up in future meetings?
I have one thing that I'd like to have conveyed to the ad hoc committee is that they conduct as much of their discussions in open session as possible and only use executive session sparingly. And my reason for that is creation and preservation of the record of the discussion. So I noticed when the agenda came out for that first meeting, it's essentially like they convened and we're going right into executive session. And then you read through the minutes, they spent a good bit of time introducing each other. And so that seems like a stretch that would be covered under executive session privilege of FOIA.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just an encouragement. I know you have folks who are on that committee that are used to operating in a lot of different capacities, but I would ask you to convey to them that they conduct as much of it as possible in open public session, one, so the public can attend if they want to, but also so that we have a record of what they've discussed. Particularly like in the minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm a pretty strong in the minute guy. If we ever go back and try and trace, or if somebody comes after us and they're ever trying to figure out how did we end up with that particular thing, that may give some insight. Plus it's also helpful, like I wasn't able to make that meeting, and so the minutes is what I rely on.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I'll add that was pretty much the same feeling among the members who were there. We never went into executive session.
Never did.
We chose not to, that there wasn't anything that we didn't feel couldn't be stated. So I don't, now after we found out that we were eating on camera, we might have changed our mind on whether or not we wanted to do that. But I think overall the feeling is that we wouldn't use executive session unless it truly was needed.
well, and you certainly may come across that. I'm not trying to.
And I think there were
or
some
suggest
that
it.
came up to us after the meeting that felt there's going to have to be some, because some of them felt like we're not getting the full story. They felt that there were some in the room that may not be as willing to openly talk about issues and concerns out in the public regarding any type of matter. So I don't know ultimately what's gonna happen, but there was, you know, I think it was River Stillwell, the attorney that brought that up, and he's like, yes, let's do as much as we can in the open. So I think, and everybody was on board with that. But when it was putting the agenda together, that was how it was recommended that we discuss, so that there would be the frank, open discussions regarding, you know, because it ultimately is gonna lead into a contractual matter. This coming, the coming meeting on January 9th, Lawrence Flynn will be present, and he'll be discussing the memorandum that he wrote, which was included with the minutes. So we turned to the back, saw those, and saw his memo regarding the two options that he was asked to evaluate. So that's been made public as well.
And thank you, Celia, I forgot all about you being on. Thank you, one, for being on, but also.
Well, I don't think I'm helping too much, because like you said, some of them aren't sharing the full story, something like that. I'm so new, I don't know the full story. So when I'm looking at things through rose-colored glasses, that's truly the color of glasses I've got right now, so.
Yeah, but, you know, to reiterate what Mr. Bronson said, there's that feeling already there that we wanna have as much in the open. Now, the unfortunate thing for that, I think Lynn was probably hoping it would be behind closed doors, so she didn't have to take 9 to 10 pages.
Lynn
worth of
is awesome at
minutes.
minutes. Whether she likes it or not, I don't know, but is she awesome at it? Yes.
Otter AI.
I don't want it as a full-time job.
That's why I said, use that, so you don't have to do it. Alright, anything else?
I have one thing, our next finance committee meeting is January 20th, that's MLK Day, I think we're off that day, are you guys closed?
We would be, yes.
So we
Good
might wanna
catch.
look at that,
No, sir, yours is the 28th.
it says on here it's January 20th, that's what,
The red should, oh, on the,
agenda,
okay, thank you.
so with the 28th,
28th, that must have been a fat finger part of my hand hit the wrong button.
then we have no issue.
Up here, okay. It's on the calendar correctly, it's just not.
Yeah, I just
Okay,
looked on the
I
agenda.
got you now.
Yeah.
Anything else? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Alright, I wish all of you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas to you too. Feels like I haven't seen y'all in a long time.
That's a good invite.
Well, you've seen
Yeah.
me a lot.